Good day everyone, Dr. Blob here. And I had problems making this video. Not so much because there isn't something to talk about. Just a quick search and you will find a lot of other videos like this one. Rather, it's because I couldn't find the proper wording. I've been trying to write this down countless times, yet nothing came out. So I decided to just rant it out. It's gonna be a bit messy since there's no script this time around. But first of all, a huge thank you goes to Sneeman for letting me see his gameplay through Endfield second beta. Without his help, I couldn't have such a close-hand experience. Now, let's start with the good things. The visuals has clearly been improved from previous time, as now there is more detail and the map looks to be properly populated. It no longer is just a lot of empty space, but rather more compact and populated. Combat has been tweaked a bit. Now it's easier to make combos and to make use of the special skills. Not to mention the whole stun system, which is greatly improved and even explained this time around. Not to mention that weapons have a bit more variety, though I have a couple of things to say about it. We have a proper dash in combat, and now it gives us some invincibility frames. Though I also have something to say about that. Base building improved a lot. It went from a convoluted mess to something far more streamlined and easier to understand. I mean, I know it's supposed to be the one thing to make it original among the sea of Breath of the Wild copycats. That doesn't mean it has to take all the spotlight. Models are far more expressive now. You can see more of the personality in the characters beyond just their words, though you can only see this in certain parts of the story. Personally, I think this needs to be developed a bit more. However, they managed to break out the monotonous with very interesting camera work. It's not just look at one character, pan to the other, look back to character. Instead, they take this more artistic, I wanna say, showing what they are looking about, what they are talking about, the impact of what they are talking about, making the dialogue easier to understand alongside the scenery. And finally, the one thing everybody wants to talk about, the gacha. At first I thought it was a bit stingy, but then while reviewing the recording I noticed it was mostly because Neiman is not so much of a gacha player. He pulls like once every couple of hours, if not days. But by the end of the first week he had everyone on the roster, so it's not as stingy as other examples. And what I actually liked is the fact that, yes, this game has a weapon gacha. However, it's not as predatory as in other games. While you can pay for the gacha rolls of the guns, you can also get seed currency whenever you pull in the standard or the special gacha. As for every roll, you get a certain amount of seed currency, and it's even more economic to get seed currency that way. Not to mention that if you want to get a specific weapon, you can just buy it. That's very generous in my opinion. So long they don't lower the rates, I'm pretty sure everyone's gonna love this gacha. But sadly, that's about it of the good things I have to say. Now let's go with the bad things. Combat. What's clearly been tweaked and improved, I will say is a bit stiff still. Nowhere near as in the first beta, but there is this sense of repetitiveness. Of course this can be improved if you change your team around, which also goes with the fact that this battle system depends a lot of the stun mechanic, which depends of different combos and different elemental attacks. So I can understand why making the combat more fluid is not the main focus, but at the same time, even as flashy as it is whenever you chain all the special skills, this is going to get repetitive sooner or later. And unlike regular gachas when you can just throw a bunch of characters to make a gigantic pool, here we most likely gonna get one character every couple of months, so the pool is not gonna be that wide. I hope it actually gets improved with due time, because I like where they are going, but there are still problems with it. For example, the new dash is useless. Let me explain. The enemies have a very interesting way to telegraph their attacks. While they are telegraphed, the flashing lights that come out is not the moment where you are supposed to dash, it's shortly after them. So it makes it a bit confusing to actually tell when you are supposed to move out of the way. But even then, if you manage to pull it out, it only gives you one invincibility frame. If there are two attacks incoming, you only evaded one. The second one is still hitting you. The very fact that they are asking about it in the questionnaires tells me that they are aware of this, so I wouldn't be surprised if they actually improve it in the future. However, another thing that I don't like about the combat is that the combos cannot be cancelled. For example, there is this character, Arclight. I'm surprised it took them this long to make a speedster out of a Kuranta. Back on topic. She have this dancer-like motion to her combos, making huge arcs and hitting multiple enemies at once. Problem is that said arcs take a couple of seconds to be performed, especially the breakdance one. And whenever she enters in one of these attacks, she's locked into them. That's something I think they should work on. I was also gonna say that the abilities are a bit harder to pull, but as I saw more videos online, I noticed that they depend to have a very varied team. Not so much variation, rather, you need good compatibility between the units. So again, I understand what they're going for, but I feel it's a bit restrictive. I know what I just said, that the system is clearly meant to have this freedom to just change units whenever you want and to make the combos however you want to make them look like. However, this is starting to look a lot like Arknights at the beginning, when the most common strategy was to just throw a lot of buffers and debuffers and get one unit to wipe out everyone else. As cool as this image is, it shows exactly what I'm talking about. I'm having a hard time to explain it, that's why I also had a hard time to write it down, but the point I want to get is that while very flashy and it can be very powerful, it's also a bit restrictive, which I think is not the point of this system, because they clearly want to go for freedom. Well, I guess this will change once there are more characters out, but for now I think this is a bit not entirely sure. I would also like it if they bring back the technical deployment of characters' abilities. You might say it breaks combat dynamism, but honestly, I like it because it made the game more tactical, as you could choose which units you wanted to hit. Not to mention it also relates back to Arknights as a more strategic game. I know there's the tower defense minigame, but it had its uses, and I hope they bring it back. Now, going from combat into the exploration, I gonna see that there were only two things I didn't like. Mainly, there is a lot of platforming in this game. However, there is no edge climbing. I don't want them to copy the Breath of the Wild formula of just becoming a Spider-Man, but at least just grab the ledge. There are characters who are the right height to just send their hands up and climb up. But nope, you have to go all the way to find the right way to fall down into the specific ledge you want to go, and then you can continue. Again, this is one of those things that they are also asking about, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is actually implemented in the actual game. But for now, it just made me so... Why so much platforming if there isn't a tool to help with it? Another thing that I really didn't like about the exploration, and I even turned down Schneeman about, is the loot clicker. You know, whenever you open a chest and the inside spill out like popcorn. That's so freaking annoying. I understand. You have to make it interesting. But it's also such a waste of time. Okay, you want to make it look like it comes out, okay, but then how to collect it? There's no need to click each and every one of them. You could say, oh, but there's some stuff that you might not need when you get at higher levels. But there's a system to transform useless items into higher level ones. So you are always gonna grab the items. And there's no limit to your backpack, as far as I know. So that is completely pointless. That's why I say that it just drives me nuts. I just consider it to be very redundant. And I hope they actually remove it in the release. And with that, that's everything I think I can just nitpick about. Which now brings me to the actual thing I'm afraid about in this game. It feels like they are trying too hard to look like Genshin without trying to be Genshin. For example, have you seen these weapons? Like, they are nothing like we have seen either in Arknights or even in the promotional videos they had before. They are too futuristic, too exaggerated, too pointless, I will even dare to say. Again, like with the loot clicker, it's something to make it look different, to say, look, this is what you rolled for. This is what gives you the power, this is what you want, right? I get the point. However, I don't think this is the right way to do it. It's too much. One of the things I liked the most about Arknights, and what attracted me the most before the base builder, it was the mixture between fantasy and urban combat. I know even in Arknights right now we have some characters with some very strange designs. However, there is a reason for them. For example, the beats on Thornsword are supposed to be what throws the poison in his ranged attacks. Which brings me again to the point that they are trying a bit too hard. Do you want to see a good comparison of very well made weapons, even in a fantastical setting? I'm not even kidding. Yes, Nika's main point is the plot. I'm not gonna deny that, it is my guilty pleasure, moving on. But still, you can see how each of the weapons the Nick is carried are functional. You know how they work. Some might be also a bit too exaggerated, but you can still see yourself using it. It might be a bit uncomfortable, but it's not impossible to use. On the other hand, we have weapons like this. For some reason in my Discord there are a lot of guns aficionados. And when they saw this thing, the first thing they said was, if you shot this, you're gonna end up breaking your wrist. That's not how guns function. And again, I understand. They want to sell the idea that this is in the future. Weapons and stuff has evolved. We can literally create things out of light. But that doesn't mean it has to be that exaggerated. There is a reason whenever there is a new competition for new weapon developers, the more exaggerated the weapon, the less the probabilities of it to win. Sometimes simplicity has its charm. And I think these weapons, while I understand what they're going for, they can be toned down a bit. I mean, you want them to be sci-fi? Okay, go for it. But at least make them believable. Because that's part of what we loved of this world. It's fantasy, but it's a believable one. On a similar note, I'm gonna have to talk about the NF in the room. The fanservice. It's not that I am against it. Again, I play Nike. It's just that, again, as previous point mentioned, it makes them look desperate. Some work. For example, Aurora, we already know what's her deal. Her body overheats a bit too much, so she needs to show skin in order to cool down. There's also the aforementioned Arclight, who clearly has inspiration as a dancer, which again explains why she's dressed like that. But then we have this. This one I understand. She's a tech girl who also likes to be fashionable. We have seen that in Arknights as well, but I think this is a bit too much. Ember has absolutely nothing, which will explain why she's running around like this. I mean, I kinda can see what they are going for, like, this is a character who is so focused on combat that she will get rid of anything that doesn't aid in her mission, thus going in such an outfit. However, there is nothing on her files who would say that. They only say that she's stoic and determined, and that she's a nun. Then why is she dressing like that? Saihi is another nun from the very same organization as her, and she's not wearing anything like it. So these, the over-designed weapons, the loot clicking, them trying to appeal to the Genshin players, it's what it makes me say that, yes, this is an improvement of the previous beta. Yes, this is a very interesting game. But if it were to be released as it is right now, it will be forgotten in a month. Personally, I've been rumbling my head about why would they suddenly go to this route when they have never done so before? Then it hit me. Do any of you remember Ex Astris? This is Hypergriff's second game, and it went out without an applause, neither with outrage. It went with a whimper. I don't remember who said it once, but a great game will be famous forever. A bad game will be cursed forever, but a mediocre game will die in obscurity. I think this is the reason why they are doing this. Why they are trying to appeal so hard to the Genshin fandom. They don't want to repeat what happened to the Ex Astris. While I know they are continuing the story, since they only released Chapter 1, this was a passion project. This is how they wanted the game to be, and it reached no one. So in order to avoid the story to repeat itself is why, well, all of this is happening. Which is why I'm afraid of them to release the game as it is right now. To quote Schneemann himself, once I asked him about his experiences in the game. While he enjoyed it, and he's very excited for the actual release, his last words explained my fears the best. Quote, Endfield feels like it is a counterpunch to a jab that was thrown 5 years ago. They are following trends out of fear. And that will not make them look unique, will not make them stand out. People will just say, oh, another Genshin clone, and move on. And I don't think that's the way to go. After all, the one thing that make it stand out the moment the first Endfield trailer was revealed was the base builder. They have good ideas. They can make this game work. So long they stop trying to be someone else and just be Hypergriff. I really want this game to succeed, and I'm really excited for the future development of this game. And I really hope they come to this conclusion. Or at the very least that they tone it down a bit. I fell in love with Terra, not because it was pretty or flashy, or there was big boobab. I like it because it was Hypergriff's game. It was their creation. And I want to see this in Talos too. But well, that is my rant. Like I said, I want this game to succeed, and I know the developers will do their best. As afraid as I might be, I still wish them the best. And again, a huge thank you to Schneemann for sharing his experiences with me. And to all of you for enduring this rant of mine. This has been Dr. Blob, humbly asking for a like and a subscribe. The year has just begun, and this game is still some time away. So until then, and until next time, stay healthy everyone.